Greetings, everybody, from sunny Spirit Lake, Iowa. Extra sunny today. We started out the week with kind of some gloom and rain and cloud cover and everything else, and then the sun came out and all that rain turned to steam. And,
oh my gosh.
And we're pretty humid here. A lot of you people that tune in from the drier parts of the country maybe don't know what it's like when it's 100% humidity and everything you touch is moist, you know. Peanuts in the shell are moist. Pistachios are wet on the inside. Sunflower seeds, nuts, things like that are all kind of moist.
Salt
but anyway,
shakers don't shake.
Sunny day, and what are we up to today? Got to be about 90 degrees out there. I'm thinking
it's and 90% humidity.
Yeah.
It is hot.
It is hot.
Mandy made the journey to Walmart and said that wasn't the thing to do. We have tourists pouring into the area, and so to be safe in this time of the COVID virus and stuff like that, everybody needs to stay home because there's going to be a lot of people running around here. Stay in the water where you get washed off all the time. But
terrible idea.
Okay, if you've been with us for the last
decade?
5 or 6 episodes, we started out talking about artificial heads and fins, using them on your fish. And Brett and I were talking this afternoon that a lot of people don't do this, and we typically don't often change out heads. We do fins once in a while in need, and we have several fins, and we have several fin molds that we make our own that we don't have to buy. But it's not unlike smashing up your car and taking it to the body shop. They don't pound dents out anymore.
That's right.
I think they just kind of order new parts and put them on. So this is a little bit like a car. We just ordered new parts and put them on and make that smallmouth car look as good as new. But this is a fish that we replaced a pike on. I mean, this was his fin. Now, like we said last week and probably the week before, you can use these fins and you can repair all that, but the amount of effort that you go through rather than selecting purchasing a perfect fin like that or making one is, it's a pretty good trade-off, and you'll come up with a lot nicer product. Don't forget during the broadcast, like and share, like and share, like and share.
Yeah.
We'll have a giveaway at the end. And stay tuned for that.
I think she's got a big sale coming up for the 4th of July, too, that she'll announce.
There's a lot of sales that go on in this place. You know what?
Big sales coming. So
Deals.
Stay tuned for the end of life, and we will announce all those.
So today, I think we're going to try to, this is the fish that we've been working on. And last week we blent the union between the artificial fins and the fish, tails on. We can put the paired fins on now, and we often do. If it was the mounted fish, he would have them on, although some people cut them off and do them that route too. But I like to leave them off, paint them separately, kind of like this, and then index them in to where they go. And if you're careful and do a little epoxy work on your fish first, you'll just have a hairline seam to fix and minimal amount of painting. So it's up to you. You can put your fins on now and have him all ready to go, or you can paint your fins and put them on separate. Just remember, any repair that you do on this fish, if you have a whole bunch of epoxy sculpts all over your paint job and you've already got him painted, you're going to have to come back and blend that and fix that, which sometimes can be difficult because you might have mixed a color that you don't quite remember what you mixed. So my method, and Brett and I were talking today, I think it's a little bit similar. We concur, Doctor. And this kind of came about for both of us teaching students because we've had students who have a very difficult time when it comes to airbrushing markings, whether it's bars on a bluegill or stripes on a perch or the line, the markings in a largemouth. So many fish have markings, and a smallmouth is really, really difficult. And to give them an airbrush and have them tune it down and try to put it on, I would say 2 out of 100 might impress you, and there's going to be 98 that we are going to be steel wooling off a fish or stripping a fish. We had a student one time, and I laid awake at night thinking how he's going to paint fish tomorrow. How are we going to do this with him? Because he had some pretty good looking fish, but he was a struggle to get to that point. We came up with the idea of using really thin down paint and a brush. And this was just for one student. It wasn't our method. We always airbrushed all of our markings. And so we gave him the little paintbrush and the mixed paint, and we thinned it down that if he did get it where he didn't want it, it wasn't so serious that we couldn't, go another direction or get rid of it. And his fish turned out so good that we started using it on many students, and it still worked so good that we've adapted it into our paint schedule on a lot of things. We do a lot of hand paintings of markings. You have so much control with a paintbrush.
Yep.
So I think we'll start with that today. And don't forget to text in your questions, comments, replies, whatever,
Let us know where
for doing good hearts and bubbles.
From.
And, does that one show me the hearts and bubbles like the other one?
So John Bellucci says, hey, cool, you guys are all mic'd up, sounding good and clear.
Are we good?
Oh, wow.
Good.
Hey.
About time, huh, John? 3 years later, we're catching on. John, I just saw your article in Breakthrough or Taxidermy Today, one of the two, must have been Taxidermy Today, of the otter that he altered. It was very interesting,
Pretty cool.
very interesting. A lot of taxidermists aren't willing to do that, and if something doesn't fit, they're stumped, People that have been in this business a long time know enough to make it work, and make it work the right way. And you do that by making a lot of mistakes. But read that article by John Bellucci. It was pretty impressive and very fun to see, and nice looking otter. Okay, when the fish is finished, and we're not quite finished, we still have his fins to put on, and we might have a little bit of epoxy work to do still, but eventually it's going to be time to paint this fish, and we like to put the markings on first, and I like to put the markings on fairly vibrant so I can see them, and then we're actually basically going to cover them up a lot with tipping scales. Yeah.
Ray Lamb would like to know if you have fins for a muskie.
No. We do, but no. No, they make fins for a muskie. We don't carry fins. Carrying fins is a very difficult thing because there's 7 sizes of bluegill and 10 sizes of crappies, and you have to have all these fins, and the minute you don't carry one, the person asks for that 6-pound muskie fin, which you don't have, or a 50-pound muskie fin, which they don't make, that sort of thing. So we have carried fins in the past, and we probably will in the future. Presently, we do not, and I apologize for that. We do carry Gary Bruck fish heads are available online.
Yes.
And those are some of the finest fish heads you'll find. Yes.
We've got Caden Esposito tuning in on YouTube Live, and he is wondering if you can do deer sometime.
I think we got to be doing that pretty soon. And
we do?
Don't we?
I thought we just did fish.
We struggle to come up with ideas that you haven't seen because we've been doing this for, 3 years, and that comes out to 150 or more sessions, and it's hard to come up with something that we haven't done before to show you new things. And I was just thinking today, we really need to show people how to sharpen their knives and sharpen their tools and keep their stuff sharp, and how to thin a cape properly and thin them, whether you send them to the tannery or whatever. And yeah, we'll probably start on
And as far as that goes, you're on YouTube. You can also go back and watch all our past deer ones that we've done. We've done quite a few. So definitely go back on YouTube or Facebook and check those out.
Yep.
Notice how much younger and more handsome I was in the beginning in the early ones.
In the beginning.
And
then there was Tom.
Yep.
Let's see a backpack deer mount.
Noah and I used to get all these extra animals, and he only needed 2, and I'd take the other extras, not, try skinning them
Right
and stuff
before
like
it started
that.
raining.
Okay, when it comes to markings, first of all, perch for me, I don't want to say a perch is a perch but the markings on a perch, you're going to see them, you're going to see where they are, you're not going to have to invent them. Largemouth bass, if you're using the skin mounts, largemouth bass, you may see where they are, but they might not be as explicit as they need to be. Smallmouth bass, look how this fish dried. There are no markings. Smallmouth bass is pretty tough to keep any markings on them.
I've never seen one dry with markings.
We've tried everything. We've tried the borax. Remember you used to scrub them with a little brush?
Toothbrush, yep.
You thought that was a good idea.
It fixes some stuff.
It does, it does.
It does, but it does not bring those markings back.
What else did we do? We used to bleach them.
Yeah, bleached a lot of dark skins.
But we never had much luck with smallmouth markings. Muskies are another one. You may see some of the markings towards the tail where they're a little harsher, but it's hard to see them as they go up into the body, so the taxidermist has to invent that. When the customer comes in and you talk to him about his fish and it's laying there and he'll look around your showroom, and if you've been doing taxidermy very long, you're going to have, fish from over the years, and he's going to say, ooh, I really like that one, or I don't like that one, or I like the markings on this one. So not only are you conferring with him on the pose, whether it's a fighting up or a fighting down or tail curve, S curve, swimming curve, whatever it happens to be, also get a feel for color. Try to get pictures of the customer's fish, but a lot of times the pictures aren't fresh pictures. They came out of his trunk and he ran to every bait shop, and then you say, hey, snap a picture of me with my fish. So anyway, pictures are okay if they're a good picture. We did an experiment many years ago where we had a glass, and we'll do it again. That would be a very good thing for live, is get our glass box, and we sandwiched the fish in between glass. We even got a sedative from the hatchery that we put in the water to calm the fish down so he wasn't, struggling. We had an aerator in it, but you could bring the glass right up to the fish and you could photograph him. And I think you took these. This was just aquarium,
plexiglass box, yeah.
You can do this yourself. Brett just took these, and you can see his lawn underneath.
Yeah, it was.
And this is one of my most valuable pictures when it comes to markings. But we would sandwich the fish between glass, and then you could take really detailed pictures. Then we started discovering that if you, I noticed one time I came home late at night and looked at my fish in the aquarium, and they were so pale without color, almost transparent. I mean, everything, my angelfish, my guppies, my swordtails, everything, I thought they were going to die. I thought my fish are dying. It's their camouflage system at night for predators. And so fish change color a lot, and a smallmouth, I'd have to say, is the chameleon of fish. They can really camouflage themselves, so they change color a whole bunch. Anyway, we found out that by covering the glass box and leaving them in the dark for 15, 20 minutes, take it off, you have a completely different marked fish than you did when the sun was shining.
Yep.
We found out that turning the oxygen up, you had a completely different colored fish than turning the oxygen down. And we used to torture a lot of fish, didn't we?
No, can't say that on here.
We used to have fish in boxes. We took a lot of reference pictures.
We took a lot of
but
pictures.
this was an example of a smallmouth when the oxygen was cut down. Yeah. That's a really, really vibrant fish. We have, any of you get smallmouth in or have caught smallmouth up north, sometimes they are nearly chocolate black. Dark fish. So when a customer comes in with something like that, that's not what, I don't want to give him a bullhead back when he brought a smallmouth in. So I encourage, I'll have a photo book, or hopefully he sees something on the wall and says, ooh, I really like that one. And so something I can match. And you can lighten up those dark fish, or you can, make them any color you want. And sometimes you might want that. I like a smallmouth looking fish. This one is slightly too vivid for me. I really like this one. This one isn't. This is pretty common. If we caught one here, that'd be a pretty common color. So find out what your customer wants. I kind of like shooting for that.
That's a nice fish, yeah.
I like vivid markings. So the method that we do, and I kind of started. First thing, you need to look at your pictures, and if you look at this picture, you can see the markings on the back. Where's your back picture? This was a good one. Zoom in on that guy. See the markings on the back? Looking down on the fish from the top. Those are the markings that I would put on each side here. And we don't spend a great deal of time on the back, but we do make it look a representation of the species. Mike Orthaber, mentioned to somebody said something about the back of the fish, and do you paint the back of the fish? And he said, do you want to pay me to spend my time on the front, or do you want to pay me half the time on the front and half the time on the back that goes against the wall? And that's a good,
very good way to look at it.
Good thought, because you're going to have a lot of time in painting the back side of the fish. But the first thing you're going to want to do is study and look at the markings and the shape of the markings. And things jump out at me. If you look at a whole bunch of smallmouth pictures, things that jump out at me are the markings looking down at the top that are probably a quarter to a half inch away from the dorsal fin.
Yep.
Tell me if you find something, if you notice something different, or if I'm telling them wrong. But I noticed those, that jumps out at me. I noticed that the bars that are up and down, I noticed that they don't start way up high on the back. First you have those couple rows of oblong spots, pear-shaped spots. So kind of study these so you know what you're trying to accomplish. I noticed that those bars go all the way down to the belly, and they taper out very pointed at the belly, and they're tapered at the top, but they're widest through the middle.
Yep.
Just things that I kind of notice. Also check out your head. This is a good one for an example of bars along the spots along the top, and then the bars.
And it's a good point too. You'll notice a lot of times these vertical bars work their way in between the bar markings in the lateral area, and so it's nice to establish the top markings first, and then you can build your spacing down into your mid markings.
This picture shows that pretty good.
Yeah.
Big ones, the big ones along the dorsal, and then this marks coming in the side. So kind of study your fish, whether it's largemouth, smallmouth, bluegill. I mean, for years we put little bar stripes on a bluegill in dark, only to years later look at the reference pictures to see that they're much wider than you really think, and the brighter color is actually the stripe and not the stripe that you put on in dark.
Like the zebra.
So what I would like to do is, I started on this one, and we put it on with watered down paint or thinned down paint. If you're using lacquers, I would probably start with, it's hard to get a couple drops, so say 10 drops of lacquer paint mixed with a teaspoon of thinner.
Yep, nice and thin.
And, go ahead.
You're doing these markings before we seal the fish?
Yes.
So we haven't done anything to seal him yet?
We have not sealed this fish. And the reason is, like you were mentioning today, that pigment will actually leach up under the scales and give you varied values, I guess, if you want to call it. So where you put it, you're going to have intense color, but it also leaches up under the scales because you haven't sealed it with anything. And you can get some really nice effects that way. Also, by putting it on now, if anything goes wrong, you got it too bright or too dark, if you use lacquer thinner, wipe it off with, or lacquer, wipe it off with lacquer thinner. If you used water, wipe it off with water. Or I did today, I wiped one off with alcohol.
Alcohol is
nice, any of
and
the water
evaporates,
paints. But the way I'd mix my paint is take a little cup, and we do this, I do it on every largemouth, I do it on every smallmouth, perch occasionally.
Jig and Jim wants to know if you've noticed that many smallmouth bass have 11 vertical bars.
I think that's optimum. 11 is perfect. If you can get 11, you've hit your spacing very well.
That's harder to do than you think.
It
too.
is. It is.
Same with bluegill and largemouth and stuff like that. You know how many you want. Yeah. End up, you got to start compressing or something. Now,
a perch is another one. 7 bars on a perch is great. If you put in 8, it doesn't look right. You put in 6, they're too far apart.
okay, now I put, I'm using Createx paint straight out of the bottle, and then I don't want black, I don't want brown, I want a really dark color. And
so are you shooting for this body color?
The bar color, yeah.
The darkest of the bar color, not the green in between.
Now, something with Createx, any of you that use it, this is illustration color, very thin, right out of the bottle. It can be sprayed out of the bottle. You can thin it. You're not supposed to over thin it. 10% max, is that right? These are wicked colors, and you can thin wicked colors to 90%.
Very
I mean,
thin,
forever. So you can thin them out quite a bit.
So Cole has his new Createx kit, and he hasn't started using it yet. But what advice are you going to give him to first start out, to take away the first starting headaches of switching paints?
You'll have a day of it.
Jump in. You have
so fast
to
forward
do
through
it.
that for these people. What would you say?
I guess what I learned is don't over thin. I was trying to thin, with lacquer
Yes.
paints, I try to make a lot of transparents, and I try to thin them really, really thin so I can put on layers of color without intense color. You don't want to thin them. You don't want to over thin them,
No.
unless it's the wicked colors.
Even the wickeds spray very nicely, thicker than you're used to seeing.
Another thing is that mixing them and letting them sit is hard for me to do, and I will mix them, get anxious, forget about it, start painting. They won't paint, and sometimes it takes 7, 8, 10 minutes. And you said the other day you had the best detail you've ever had, and you know it was because he let it sit, and you sprayed pin lines for an hour.
Yep. Absolutely.
So it's just working with it. We like it. We like it a lot.
Just do it. I think that's the biggest advice I can give is just make yourself do it.
No exhaust fan at all.
Yeah. I think that was the only way we were even going to make a switch was Tom declared that we were going to switch, period.
No.
And we did.
Not
for a
to
day.
you.
But
Yeah,
we did for a day. Yep. We absolutely
spent one
did.
whole day.
So give them a shot.
So what I do is, on the real fish, I came in and put on my lines like this. Now, you can put them on as, if they're going on like shoe polish, I'd thin it down quite a bit, Then, once you get your top bars in, come in and put in your side bars.
11 of them. And that is pretty thin. That's going on really nice.
Now, sometimes I will go through and I will, I don't like to make them like a rubber stamp. Sometimes it'll be a whole bar. Sometimes it'll be made up of 3 or 4 pieces. Sometimes it'll be a piece like that. Another thing that sometimes you'll be doing a fish like this and you'll notice he's not looking as smallmouthy as you had hoped. And how come? Make sure that, I like to make sure that these bars, and you'll find them, if I tell you they're all parallel, you're going to say that they're not, No, they're not, but they look the nicest and smallmouthy if you make them all parallel like that. Bluegill, don't angle them forward or backward. Muskies, you do find them angled forward in the front part of the fish. So
just study your reference, interpret that as best you can. And look at the space between. As Tom's painting, you can see the dark marking here, but he's also leaving a pretty consistent space in between. And notice the space between the markings is larger than the marking itself. That's another thing that you can look to for some of your different species. Your bluegill, it will be the opposite of that. Usually with the bluegill, the space in between is less than the width of the bar.
now you're going to notice that he's starting to look like a perch. You know, they just will look like a perch going through the process. And what keeps them from looking perchy is all of this, I call it debris. That one's a good picture.
Great picture.
All that debris in between, and just kind of study them, kind of look at how much scale they take up and how big they are. Don't make them all the same. You can do this process pretty fast. And I'm doing it on this little half of a reproduction here just because you can see it good. You know, and you're going to end up with something like this. And you can go back and make them dark. We were talking earlier that we like to actually make them quite dark because we're going to scale tip over all of it.
Yep.
And you're going to have put them on, and you're going to scale tip over it, and you're going to think they're gone. But you start turning in different directions. They're not gone. They're under the scale tipping, and now you're going to come back and put them on again. But you'll know where to put them.
Richard said he's going to order the whole lot of Createx paint.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Order one or two, and then see. I think you're going to love it, but I spent $300, and these things are junk. We love them, but do buy a little sample kit and mix them, and you will like it.
Yep, there's a great primary kit. There's a bloodline kit. There's several different kits. Try, and the individuals. We've got great individuals too. Pick one that's going to work well for you for your application, and give that a try.
This is a little skin mount that we've had mounted here for a while, need to finish, and I just was getting ready for today's live and put these markings on there. Notice all the irregularities in the skin tone, the way he dried. This fish dried very nice color-wise. This one has slime spots and markings, and he's got a lot of different color variations. Once we put on our markings, do our tipping, come in with our body colors, that'll all blend and be gone.
We're going to even all that out.
Should I do the real
You
thing?
can do the real one?
Now, all I'm going to do to him is, my stuff's getting just a little bit on the thick side.
On that note for Richard, though, our Createx paints are 15% off with the F-Book Live. So take advantage of that if you are going to try them out.
Definitely.
No, I didn't mean don't do it. Once you really get on to using them, there's some differences. You're going to see some things that you could do with lacquers that you can't do with waters, and some things you can do with waters that you can't do with lacquers.
Oh, I can watch you over there. So you're starting with that upper.
I'm trying to do these bars right up here, and I don't think I could make a shape wrong. The thing I do think I can make wrong is I could make them too big, make one too big, and then it doesn't follow the pattern of the rest. Now, occasionally you're going to have a scale that maybe has a little air underneath it and is not colored like you wanted. A little bit of touching it with clear Createx paint makes it go away. Now we're going to be painting on this fish throughout the week. We could maybe do a little even tutorials they could look at, could we?
I bet Mandy would like that.
Yeah.
We could do a few here and there.
Because next week we want to wrap this up, and we're going to put him on something. We're going to gloss him, put him on something. Now we've done all kinds of things. You probably want to come around this side if you want to see. Now I try to make all these somewhat parallel. And I'm just giving myself guidelines as to where to go.
So while you're working on those, what would you seal him next? And should we show him how to do that?
That's a good idea.
I could put a little sealer on this guy.
And there's a sealer, and you're going to want some of this.
Yeah. We're going to use the 6000 transparent sealer.
Let me say too, before you seal, if you get something that you think is in the ballpark, something you're after, all of a sudden you're going to have something that's too harsh or too dark and a big old splotch, and what do you do with it? We take, first of all, with water paint, you can take a little water on your paper towel and wipe this right off. This is, they call it soft erase, and it really doesn't firm up for a while. It'll look great, but it won't harden for 48 hours? 24 hours? 48
I
hours?
think it creates a chemical bond.
So you can get it off. You didn't hurt anything.
Kaden on YouTube wants to know if you can do an elk and moose sometime.
Oh, yeah.
Holy smokes.
And then he also says that he got the Pro 1 paste and he is very excited to use it.
Well, that's awesome.
We got a tip for you people. You game head people, tell them about your ears.
Oh, our pink ears?
We get a lot of products. Tell them, and then I butt right in. We get a lot of products, and everybody says, asks us how to use something. And it used to be we only carried what we use. Now we've had so much requests for all this stuff that people, we have too much. We can't tan with Liquitan and Trubon and Pro. We can't do it all three at once. So they'll say, what do you like best? And I like them all. You know, they all work. But one of the products is Derma Grip ear adhesive, and tell them that.
So we had a container of ear adhesive and had our deer batch going. I think we did 8 or 9, didn't we?
Yeah.
In the last couple of weeks. And it's pink, which does come through the skin. It was kind of a nice effect. That's a bonus. We can always paint, but that was certainly nice. It was very thin when we first opened it. I thought, how is that going to bond as well as a thicker glue? Pushed through and made it work, and prepped our ear skin good, used it, and of 8 deer that we have mounted, we don't have, of 16 ears, we don't have one drummed ear. And that's a feat. That's, you know, usually or oftentimes I should say, there's one that's a little sticky or you have a little air under and you have to come back and inject and fix. And it's been great finishing deer this week because 1, we had great results with the pink color coming through, and 2, we didn't have to go back and check any ears for drumming.
Thought it was like a gimmick when we got it.
Yeah.
That's a Derma Grip pink ear.
Derma Grip pink ear adhesive, man.
Yeah.
And it comes, it's a pint, but looks like it comes in a quart jar now.
So,
because
so
it
that
looks
was,
like you're half empty, but it's really, the jars have switched.
See, I get all excited about some of this stuff, and I was doing the deer, and I thought it was kind of working, and so I gave it to Brett, and you've done it on many.
well,
And-
that was the thing. I thought I have had good success with other methods, and I'm very hesitant on something as critical as ears to change, but it was working for Tom, and so went ahead and tried it, and man, every single deer that we did, come back the next day and just check, and it was very good.
I did
Very,
inject
very
one,
good.
and it injected through a 16-gauge needle really
Yep,
well, and
yep.
it was as good as.
And the glue is very thin, which I liked, because it doesn't cause as much buildup or kind of lumpiness. If you don't work your ear long enough, sometimes you'll get some thick and thin spots. This is very thin and has great grab, really good
So
holding
thin
power.
that you were pretty convinced it wasn't going to work.
Well, I thought for sure I was going to squish it all out. But one thing I did do was we build our ear butts first and usually coat them with a hide paste overnight. And I coated the whole ear liner with hide paste. Let that dry overnight. I think that helped. Gave it a good bond. But yeah, Dermagrip ear adhesive.
But
worked great.
we're as professional as you can get around. I mean, we've done this forever. There's nothing we haven't done, nothing. And ears, every method we've tried,
Yeah.
we love it, but
There's
there's always
a drawback.
oh, that didn't work as good that time as it did last time. And we did the epoxy route, and that was turned into about $60 a quart, and you waste more than you ever put in the ears.
Yeah.
And we're pretty excited about this.
Yeah. So I've got the transparent sealer mixed. Can I show them that?
You bet.
So this is just the 6,000 transparent sealer. I did mix it with the 4013 reducer. It sat for a few minutes. I've got it in the airbrush. And you can see it's fairly thin. And now I'm just going to airbrush that on the skin. And I'm going to make sure to get right over top of the epoxy transitions. I'm going to spray it a little bit from back to front, just thinking that it might collect on the back side of those scale edges if there are any scales that are a little bit high. Smallmouth is a pretty smooth skin, but walleyes will gather a little bit. You can feel it almost goes on dry.
Okay, I got a question.
Yeah.
We showed them how to seal fish a while back, and we used and we brushed it on. How come you're not brushing?
Airbrushing today because we've painted these bars on, and just the fear that we may interrupt those bars, that this is water-based paint, and the water-based sealer, having not been on for 48 hours, it may try to bleed through. And another option, just we hadn't done a lot with the sealer through an airbrush, and tested that a little bit earlier, and it sprays very nicely.
That was a great question.
Did I ask?
And you didn't even text it in. You're supposed to put that in the comments,
And I even
and then
knew,
Mandy will ask.
I even knew the answer.
I
Yeah.
figured that. That's how you two operate.
He was baiting me.
But I didn't know it. So when I ask questions, you guys say that to me too.
But yeah, the transparent sealer does spray very, very nicely. Making sure we're going to paint inside the mouth on the real head. Obviously this fish isn't conforming to our artificial heads and artificial fins, but we've almost made him half artificial by all the epoxy work that we had to do and fin repairs.
There's so many sealers. How do you choose which one?
That's a good question.
I already know the answer, but
Oh,
just kidding.
go for it. Go.
Who answered? I guess if it's a lacquer product, you're either using polytranspars or Lifetone.
You can't intermix.
Yeah, but I think McKinsey owns Polytranspar. We carry Lifetone, and they are lacquers. They will intermix, although every company says no, because that's just, I think, to protect their, so that you don't buy somebody else's paint. You have to get it all from them. But we don't have a problem. Polytranspars is fungicidal sealer, and we would seal the fish with that. And Lifetones is base coat sealer. And then if you're into the water products, Woods and Waters will have a sealer, and Createx has a sealer. And when you get it,
Createx has a number of sealers, so how do you choose between those?
Createx has a transparent sealer, and then they have some colored opaque sealers. And so if you were maybe working on reproduction fish, you might choose some opaque sealers that would blend some of your epoxy work. They do make a white sealer, so you could, just by spraying him white, you could seal the fish and blend your epoxy transitions. I believe they have a gray and a black, which I'm not sure we would use those starting bases, but you sure could.
okay, now we would get this fish to about this stage, seal him, correct?
Yep.
And then do some liquid scales on him, scale tipping.
Yep.
Do you want to
Yep.
show them how to do that?
Diana is
Absolutely.
wondering if you guys do crappie markings the same way.
It does work pretty well with crappie markings. When you've got air under the scales on crappies, or you've lost a few scales,
That is a good.
it does work pretty well to reestablish that pattern. We usually come back and re-highlight them, but I've done that, and that does work really well.
This is a crappie Brett painted,
Oh.
and these were all enhanced, I'd have to say, but I always tell people, most people overpaint, I think, that aren't very good at painting, and they overpaint. Anyway, you don't want to overpaint, and you want to highlight more. And I always tell people, with the amount of paint that went on here, you couldn't paint your fingernails on one hand. There's not that much paint on here. There's a lot of iridescence. There's a lot of pretty blues in here, and those are, I'm assuming, all powders, right? Pearl X powders. White on the belly, and then the markings are in hand. The crappie does it. The crappie does it for you. The crappie skin. They hold their color very, very well. So go easy on the color. To me.
So Kaden is wondering, what is that big thing behind you?
This one, that one, tar. A tar, Himalayan tar
Yeah.
from Himalaya.
You said Avatar. Did you know Avatar is coming out with like 4 more movies?
No.
I'm very excited.
Did you know I
Side
need to
note.
get new ones for my car?
What?
Tars.
When's what's her name coming back? Hunger Games. Camden, what's her name?
I feel like that's what's happening now.
Hunger Games, a new one?
Katniss. Katniss.
Katniss, yeah.
Everstein or whatever.
Katniss.
Yeah.
Whoops.
Okay.
Don't mean to bump the table on you.
So I'm just going to tip a little bit, and one of 3 big tips for scale tipping. 1, water brush. We've done lots of demos on this, haven't recently, but really, really works well. This is an extra fine. Scale tipping cup, just to have convenience of your paint reservoir in relation to your surface. And magnification. My old eyes need magnification. And I don't have my light up magnifiers with me today, but the magnifying visor works really well.
These glasses are going to be discontinued pretty soon by the vendor.
Nuh-uh.
When they're gone, they're gone.
These
get the
water
rest of it.
brushes last a long time. They're very inexpensive, but this is what happens after you can see the the tip is all flared out. So when we got ready for live today, I said, better get a new water brush because this one is done for.
The water brushes, especially mine recently, has gotten a lot of use for epoxy work.
Oh yeah,
Brett, is there any way you could turn it a little bit to the camera? I know it's gonna be awkward. Yeah.
That's
So
okay, I can
somebody-
do it upside down.
Somebody called and asked how it works because they didn't understand how to get the cap off, and I had to tell them. I think whoever invented it was a little dyslexic because it's not righty-tighty, lefty-loosey. Some of them are, but some of them are not. So you got to just twist the other way if it's not working for you.
that's Oriental. We did that too. First thing we did was, once we figured out that it's left C, tight C, right C,
Yeah.
loosey, once we figured that out, when you brought these back, we thought, what do you do with them? So I filled mine up with paint.
Count how many scales you get in one tip dip.
Quite a
One
few.
tip dip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You never cease to amaze me. Just side gig.
Anyway, when you get these, don't put paint in them. You put water in them, keeps your bristles moist and allows you to tip much longer and more scales. How many did he say?
I quit counting. I kind of got lost. I bet there were 15, 18.
Now you can't do that with a regular brush.
No, you can't.
Regular brush is good for,
And it doesn't dump water out.
Two.
It gradually has
yeah, it's just
the
a
water.
seeper.
There's a little valve inside.
Sometimes it quits, you'll squeeze it. Oh, there it did.
And tip for you, if you fill it, if you fill the reservoir really full, I think gravity, you've got a little bit more weight and it will pull water through faster. And sometimes your bristles will get a little bit more water. I found that if you're less than half, it tends to run a little bit better for me.
Brett brought up a really good point in why this one is probably not good anymore. These are really good for epoxy work around your deer eyes. Everything, they're wet, they're already moist. You don't have to use a wet tool to work with your epoxy. And I mean, you
So
can.
you don't have to be a fish guy.
No,
Oh,
this is as
absolutely
good
not.
for deer eyes as it is on fish.
So it's a good thing I'm getting the thick version of them.
Thick?
Wider for epoxy? No? No. Got shot down, Brett. It's a no.
Work great on our elephant eyes.
Fine. How many are you getting?
Oh, probably a dozen at least. At least a dozen.
Now, you'll probably notice that he is covering up all those nice markings we put on, but not really. They're still visible enough to highlight them later.
And we're just kind of creating some contrast. This isn't going to be your final tone. We're starting to break up this dead skin tone, giving it some reflective property. But
Now, some of you out there are going to look at this and say, I'm going to do this on their fish. How can I get paid for this? If you're going to do it, you got to get paid for it. It's time consuming. We'll show you as fast as way you can do it, but it's still a lot more time involved in a fish. But the fish really pop. Customers absolutely love them. You can raise your prices and make a living doing this.
Are the fins on the crappie powder or paint? I assume you're crappie here.
This crappie,
Yeah.
paint.
all black paint,
So no powder?
no powders on them.
No powders
No
on
powders
the,
on the fins.
but lots of powder work on the top of the back.
I see blues and purples.
Interference colors, duo colors. Crappies have lots of cool color in them. Should get Quinn to paint one.
Oh,
She could
boy.
do an awesome crappie.
She would like the colors. She's painting some rocks, artificial rocks, helping out blues and purples.
Really? And Quinn helped with making the shad into a chub yesterday.
Mm-hmm. That turned out really good.
So we would just continue going through this. We don't have to go all the way down.
And like I said, we're going to keep we'll have this fish, I guess, finished, probably ready for gloss next week. We'll show you how to put it on something,
Yeah.
gloss him, kind of make him look good for your customer. And this fish was in the freezer for, this is a shop fish, but he was in the freezer for how many years?
A lot.
You looked at the tag on this fish. This fish was in
more
the
than
freezer.
10 years.
Yeah, it's more than 10 years. Probably 12, 14 years.
How do you handle freezer burnt then?
Fish come out of it good.
Stew. Yeah.
You can put fish in water and let them soak we let them soak overnight sometimes. And typically, they'll come out of it, even the fins. We've done fish that were not wrapped well, wrapped in newspaper and things like that for 10 years to where there's no hope at all. And leave them in there and they'll come out of it. There's ultra soft relaxer I have used, and that helps soften them up also. There's different relaxers.
We had students a few classes ago that needed some different specimens that we hadn't had in a while, and we got some out of the freezer that were old and thought, well, we'll give them a try or throw them away, and they actually made really nice fish.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest hurdle right now, and what we've kind of tried to show you, is blending your artificial parts into your skin, blending those two skin tones together and getting them to get those married up before you start your paint schedule. And once you get that going, get all these skin tones put in, then you can just paint according to your smallmouth bass schedule, your favorite one. There's lots of them out there. But
New products I see.
oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
got 'em in. So if you want to start with this guy, we got some more weedy knives. A lot of people have been using and talking about them, so we extended the line. This one is the Weedy Skinner, and it basically has two sides, and one side is a serrated edge, which is on the top, which saves your blade, the bottom. So, try to hold
Razor
it.
sharp.
Razor sharp. So this is the Skinner.
Holy smokes. I think you could prune a tree
All
with
these
that.
are available online now. And then we also got this red one is a Weeby Elite. And that had, I noticed, a flatter handle than the other
You
ones
asked
we're
me
used to.
which I preferred, and I immediately said the round one, but I'm not sure this wouldn't be
Yeah.
good. It won't
Yeah,
turn in your hands. Sharp knives, I think.
Stainless steel nut.
What's the blue one called? The bigger blue one?
Oh.
That's a great knife, but it's dull. It's like a
dull,
necker
it's a
knife.
push, yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
These are sharper.
Yeah.
And it has an ultra sharp edge designed for slicing stubborn gristle found most often on raccoons and beavers. And the opposite edge is moderately sharp and ideally suited for pushing fat and muscle.
Now this Weeby Pro is razor sharp. You could shave with it. Now treat this like a knife. When you use it, clean it up and sharpen it. Keep it sharpened.
Jacob needs a shave. You
And that
wanna
also
try?
has two
Let me see if it
sides.
works.
One is very sharp and the other is semi-sharp for pushing.
Ooh.
Oh my gosh. Not today. Not today.
It does shave. That's sharp. When you can shave with a knife like that, that's pretty sharp.
That's sharp. Ooh.
But it will work best like that also. The sharper your knife is, the less pressure you have to put
right.
on things, and you're going to flesh with one stroke rather than back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So you're going to want to keep it sharp.
I always tell people that flesh with sharp tools. They do an exceptional job.
I just got a message and it said, "Yo, is there anything more about the 4 3/4 wolf head?" What one is this? This is the 4 7/8 that's available.
This is a beauty.
So that's 4
Yeah.
7/8. 5 1/4, 5 1/2, and 5 7/8 are the measurements for that wolf head. And that is now available and ready for production. It's online. You can call and ask for it. These knives are available.
4 sizes to the wolf head. The other 3 will be, I would say, 2 weeks.
Yep.
Maybe.
They're coming fast. Yep. From Cindy.
Mandy's eyes got big.
Lots of promises. And then this other little guy that we have here, this is the tail ripper. And the tail ripper was designed to zip a slot down the tail, explain the tail easier, and also opens the tail leather up to air. allow it to dry.
Probably
So
even
this is
work for the
online.
abdomen too.
Very inexpensive, but
Hunters.
Jacob, didn't you get one? Yeah. Didn't you want one? Yeah.
I had a Wyoming knife a long time ago made out of chrome steel, but it was just like
Little
that.
hook. Yep. Yep.
And then the last thing that we got back in stock is our Envirotex.
Oh, yeah.
Light.
We have a lot of call for that.
Yeah, so that is back in stock and ready to go.
Envirotex, if you've never used it, we like putting it over casting resin because it takes away the tackiness. Any of you that used scenery resin know that the next morning it's tacky, you get impatient, you touch it, you leave fingerprints. Pour a coat of this over and it'll be tack-free very fast.
And that's all I got.
That's
for
it?
New stuff.
And-
We are doing, along with Taxidermy University, I saw Cole posted his on his, so you can either go to Facebook, Taxidermy University's Facebook page and order them, or you can do it through our store or call in. But 15% off starting now through Sunday night, Taxidermy University DVDs, so take advantage of that.
Wow.
Along with, should have brought one up, we're doing a pan pastel sale for 4th of July. We're doing
Wow.
15% off all singles. And then if you buy a 10-piece kit, you get one fixative can and you also get 30 micro applicators, 10 of each size.
Whoa.
So you buy
better
a
do
10-piece
that.
kit and you get that.
I know why he was asking about this because he couldn't see the head. The whole film long, he couldn't see the head. So
What is
We
it?
could probably
The
show
tar.
them the tar.
And that's all I got. So
and we got a giveaway.
giveaway. And for the sale for the Taxidermy University and the Pan Pastel sale, the password is firework20. So make sure to enter that or let the ladies know when you place your order.
Show them the tar.
And don't blow anything up, blow anything off that you can't live without.
For fireworks,
anything-
yes.
oh.
Very safe holiday.
For fingers.
Very safe
Yeah.
holiday.
Yeah.
You're giving away a Createx sample kit.
Yeah, anybody that gets Createx, I know we had to make a couple calls when we first got it
Yeah.
to have some guidance. Anybody, we like talking about this stuff because we like it, and it's kind of, we recognize people that are using it and it's not working like they hoped it would. We can know just how we started, and it's we like talking to people about it. So if you get some and are struggling, give us a call. If you love it, give us a call. And this is our giveaway. It's got an assortment of colors in here. It's got a matte finish, and it's got a reducer, and it's got 6 colors.
We've used that matte finish for sealing our paint on our deer heads recently, our finish work on all those deer that had great ears, and that works really well. Gives a very nice finish.
This must be about a $50, $60 item.
And how do they get themselves into the drawing for these little
You
things?
gotta share this video. Actually, it's last week's video, but for the next giveaway, make sure to like and share. The winner is Chloe Jackson. So
Chloe,
congratulations.
you're gonna like it.
Nice.
And next week, you're finally gonna finish this, or is that?
Oh,
Yes.
we will continue to paint on it. We should have him painted and ready
I
to
think
go,
so,
and
yeah.
we'll show you how to make kind of a stunning habitat for him and wall
Yeah.
display that any customer would be excited to have.
Yep.
So give us a call 1-800-488-3256 or visit us online at www.matuskataxidermy.com. Have a
Happy
safe and
4th.
happy
Yeah.
4th of July.
Happy 4th of July. Thanks everybody for tuning in.